So it's finally time for my review of the third fragrance in the Cobalt line. Let's talk about what it smells like, if it's any good, and if it's redundant to get the Absolute if you already have the Elixir or the Eau de Parfum. So you probably know that I'm a big fan of the OG Eau de Parfum. The Elixir smells great as well, but even though it retains some of that core Cobalt DNA, it's definitely a bit different. And in a way, I do feel that Cobalt Absolute takes a bit of the OG Eau de Parfum and Elixir. Let's talk about it. So we have LME, blue sage and blue lavender at the top, oud, geranium and white truffle at the heart of it, and vanilla, oak wood and vetiver at the base. So this is the bottle, and as you can see, they sort of introduced this part right here. I don't care that much about the bottle, but I actually prefer the design of the other two. So right away, when you spray it on, you're gonna get something that definitely reminds you a bit of the original Cobalt. To my nose, it's an intensely aromatic kind of freshness coming through right away with a focus on the lavender and sage. And pretty much right away, I'm actually picking up on a bit of sweetness. I don't think it's too sweet or anything, but there's definitely a bit of sweetness in the opening as well. And I'm also getting a bit of that Cobalt kind of earthiness. So if you never put your nose to any of the Cobalts, pretty much all of them have a sort of what I think quite a mass appealing kind of earthiness. And to my nose, Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute's opening is basically quite an intense dose of aromatic freshness, something a bit sweet and definitely something that is a bit earthy. The more the whole thing moves away from the opening, the more I can pick up on quite a prominent dose of woodiness coming through. This is supposed to have oud though, and I'm not sure I'm picking up on any oud in here. But with that said, I do feel that the woody side of Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute is quite a rich and nuanced one. And the heart of Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute is also where you start picking up on vanilla. And this is where I feel they start to blend in a bit of Cobalt Elixir into the whole thing. And in a way, you're basically getting a bit of the opening from the original together with a bit of the heart from the Elixir, but basically done with a bit of a twist. The drawdown is where the whole thing goes in an even more intensely woody and vanillic direction. And I also feel the drawdown is a bit more sweet. That gorgeous aromatic freshness that we got from the opening is unfortunately a bit soft in the drawdown. You can definitely pick up on the earthiness in the drawdown, and I actually feel probably that this is the most earthy version of the three. So I've talked about the earthiness in the Cobalts before, but I do feel that the earthiness in the different Cobalts and in the Absolute as well is of the more mass appealing kind. There's quite a bit of sweetness in here, and the vanilla really helps in making the whole thing quite mass appealing. And if I would sort of summarize what I feel stands out with Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute, it's actually that intense and gorgeous dose of aromatic freshness, the sweet vanilla together with the earthiness. That trio together actually gives this at least a little bit of uniqueness. I am going to do a full comparison and rank of all the three Bad Boy Cobalts, so make sure you drop a like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on that one. But let's do a quick comparison right here. The OG Bad Boy Cobalt basically combines a gorgeous, super sexy dose of aromatic freshness together with a bit of fruitiness, a bit of sweetness on an extremely smoothly woody base, with the main stars basically being a fantastic dose of lavender and a really nice dose of plum. Comparing the original with Absolute, I actually feel that the original is a lighter and more intensely fresh version. And I do feel that the fruitiness of the original really makes the two quite different. With the exception of the opening, I do feel that Absolute goes into something that is richer, warmer, and in a way actually a bit more sweet. But with that said, I do think that they took some of the freshness from the original and put it in the Absolute. Comparing the Absolute with the Elixir, I do feel that it's probably these two that have the most in common. The Elixir is also quite woody, earthy and vanillic. However, I do feel there are some differences when it comes to the woodiness. But a key difference is definitely that Absolute has an aromatic kind of freshness that the Elixir doesn't have. And again, I do feel that the Absolute is basically almost like a combination of the Elixir with a bit of the freshness, like a modified version of the freshness from the Eau de Parfum, but without the Eau de Parfum's fruitiness. So let's talk about the vibe here. And I do feel that pretty much the entire Cobalt line has quite a sexy vibe to it. But with that said, I do feel that the sort of a warmer, richer and definitely more woody version that is the Absolute perhaps brings a bit more sort of elegance to that vibe. And basically that sexy vibe of it, when it comes to occasions, makes it lean more towards date nights and going out. But I mean, you can of course use it to like work or school as well. As for seasons, I do feel that whereas the OG Eau de Parfum is pretty much almost like the perfect everyday fragrance that you can use throughout the year, the Absolute and the Elixir are more for fall, winter and spring and summer nights. The warmer kind of scent of the Absolute and the Elixir definitely makes both lean more towards colder days. When it comes to compliments and mass appeal, I mean, basically the entire line is quite a mass appealing one. The Eau de Parfum is a compliment getting monster. However, comparing the Absolute to the OG, I do feel that it's perhaps slightly less mass appealing. But yeah, this is definitely another compliment getting kind of scent. The performance of Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute, at least on my skin, is so weird. Sometimes this actually lasts quite a while with quite a noticeable projection, at least for like the first hour or so, and sometimes I can barely pick up on it after like an hour or two. But with that said, I'm gonna put the performance when it comes to projection somewhere around 7 or 7.5, and the longevity pretty much the same. And you're definitely gonna get noticed at least for like the first hour or so, and at least if someone is sort of within normal conversation range. So what are some of the alternatives to Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute? I think looking within the line, in a way the closest one, at least to my nose, is Bad Boy Cobalt Elixir. I highly recommend to go back to the portion of this video where I compared these three. The Eau de Parfum though is a scent I feel actually has more differences if you compare it like Elixir versus Absolute or Eau de Parfum versus Absolute. And I actually feel that the Eau de Parfum is a better alternative since it's more different. And to my nose, it's in a way a fresher and lighter alternative with quite a prominent dose of fruitiness. Which leads me to the question, is it redundant to have all three Bad Boy Cobalts? And here are my thoughts on that. I actually do feel that unless you're absolutely insanely in love with everything about the Bad Boy Cobalt, then I actually feel that it's redundant to have the Absolute and the Elixir. While they are not exactly the same, I do feel these two have the most in common. And I do not feel it's redundant to have the OG Eau de Parfum and either the Elixir or the Absolute. I do have a full comparison of all these three coming up, so if you're not sure, just wait until that one comes out. So what are my final thoughts on Carolina Herrera Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute, and how am I going to rate it from 1 to 10? Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute, at least to my nose, is basically the combination of four things: an intense and quite gorgeous dose of aromatic freshness, a bit of warm vanilla that definitely has a bit of sweetness to it, quite a rich and nuanced kind of woodiness, and that earthiness. And I do feel it's pretty much the earthiness that gives it a bit of uniqueness. And I definitely like Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute. There's nothing I dislike about this. However, I actually feel they in a way played it a bit too safe and made it a bit too similar to the Elixir. So Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute smells good, but it definitely doesn't blow me away, and I do not feel it's as impressive as the OG. And I'm gonna give Carolina Herrera Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute something around 7.5 out of 10. It smells good, but it's definitely not a masterpiece. So this is where I want to hear from you guys. How do you feel about Carolina Herrera Bad Boy Cobalt Absolute? Do you think it's an absolute banger, or do you feel it's mid, or do you dislike it? Let me know in the comments. Please drop a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my other videos over there.